Ever feel like you're just wading through a sea of words?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know that feeling.
But today, we're diving into the deep end.
That's right.
We're going to explore some advanced English vocabulary, 15 words to be exact.
Okay.
And they're all from this book, Test Your English Vocabulary.
Sounds like a challenge.
Well, it's not about memorizing definitions or anything like that.
Oh, good.
We're going to uncover their hidden depths and how these words connect to the bigger picture.
I like that. It's fascinating how these words can really unlock a deeper understanding of human behavior and communication and even our perception of time.
Absolutely. And to make it a little easier, we'll group our 15 words into themes.
Okay.
First up, the art of communication.
All right.
Or sometimes the lack of it.
Right.
Let's start with loquacious. I'm sure you've met someone like this. They could talk a blue streak.
Yeah.
Holding court at a party, even if no one else gets a word in edgewise.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's our loquacious friend.
Yeah.
It's interesting to contrast that with someone who's laconic. They might only say a few words, but those words carry weight. Think of a seasoned judge delivering a verdict. Just brief, to the point. No wasted syllables.
Oh, I like that example. Now, have you ever noticed how some people use big words to actually avoid clear communication?
All the time.
That's where obfuscate comes in.
Right.
It's like they're trying to build a wall of jargon to hide behind.
It happens a lot, especially in fields like, law or finance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's unintentional. They're so used to speaking a certain way, they don't realize it's confusing to others.
Right.
But other times it's a deliberate tactic, make things seem more complex than they are.
Yeah, it's like they think if they use enough fancy words, no one will question what they're actually saying.
Right.
But we're smarter than that.
Absolutely.
We're going to see right through that obfuscation and get to the heart of the matter.
And sometimes the most straightforward language is the most powerful.
Okay, enough about communication. Let's talk about behavior. Our next group of words explores some interesting character types we all encounter.
Okay.
The sycophant, the ostentatious, and the austere. Let's start with the sycophant.
All right.
Oof. Just the word makes me cringe. You know that person who's always showering someone with insincere praise just to get on their good side?
Yeah, the classic yes man, always trying to curry favor. It's interesting to think about why someone might behave this way. Could it be a lack of confidence or maybe even a manipulative strategy to gain power?
Oh, it makes you wonder, right? Now let's swing to the opposite end of the spectrum with ostentatious.
Okay.
This is our friend who loves to flaunt their wealth or success.
Oh, yeah.
Think of the person who always has to have the latest designer clothes, the flashiest car, always name-dropping their fancy vacations.
Yeah, it's all about outward appearances, often masking a deeper need for validation. It makes you think about our society's obsession with status symbols and material possessions, doesn't it?
Totally. Now, in contrast to the ostentatious, we have the austere. This describes someone who lives a simple, unadorned life.
Right.
They're not interested in flashy displays or material wealth. Think of a minimalist who values experiences over possessions.
That's a fascinating counterpoint to the ostentatious lifestyle. In a world that constantly bombards us with messages about what we should want and need, the austere individual chooses a different path.
And I think the word propensity ties all three of these words together nicely.
How so?
Well, it refers to our natural tendencies or inclinations. We might have a propensity for flattery, for extravagance, for simplicity. These tendencies shape our behavior in all sorts of ways.
Exactly. We all have propensities, and recognizing them in ourselves and others can be key to understanding why we act the way we do.
Now let's shift gears and get a little philosophical. Our next group of words deals with time and the intangible.
Okay.
Ephemeral, ubiquitous, and the ineffable.
All right.
Have you ever experienced something beautiful but fleeting, like a stunning sunset that disappears in minutes?
Oh, yeah.
That's the essence of ephemeral.
It's about recognizing the beauty in transience, in those moments that are precious because they don't last. In a world that often values permanence and stability, the ephemeral reminds us to cherish the fleeting moments.
That's beautifully put. Now, on the flip side, we have ubiquitous, which describes something that's absolutely everywhere. It used to be rare to see someone using a smartphone, but now they're ubiquitous. You see them on every street corner and every cafe.
Yeah, it's incredible how quickly things can shift from novel to commonplace.
Right.
The ubiquity of technology, for example, has had a profound impact on our lives, for better or for worse.
And finally, we come to ineffable, which might be my favorite word of the bunch.
Oh, why is that?
Well, it describes something so profound, so awe-inspiring, that words simply cannot capture it. Have you ever had an experience like that, where language just failed you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes the most profound experiences are the ones that transcend language, like the feeling of standing on a mountaintop overlooking this vast landscape or witnessing the birth of a child. These are moments that defy easy description.
It makes you realize the limitations of language, doesn't it? There are some things that words simply can't convey.
And yet that doesn't stop us from trying, from searching for the words that come closest to expressing the inexpressible.
Well said. Ready to tackle our next set of words.
Hit me with it.
This group focuses on actions and reactions.
Yeah.
Perfunctory, temerity, and recant. Let's start with perfunctory.
Okay.
You know those days when you're just going through the motions?
Yeah.
Doing something out of habit or obligation, but without any real heart?
Yeah.
That's perfunctory in action.
We all have those days, right? The key is to recognize when we're stuck in a rut and to make an effort to infuse our actions with more intention and meaning.
So true. Now let's talk about temerity.
Right.
This word is all about boldness, audacity, even a little bit of recklessness. It's about having the guts to do something daring, even if it goes against the grain.
Right.
Have you ever witnessed an act of pure temerity?
Yes, actually. I recall a time when a junior researcher presented this groundbreaking theory that challenged, the established thinking in the field.
Wow.
It was a bold move considering the potential backlash from senior colleagues.
Wow, that takes courage.
It does.
That makes you wonder, what's the line between temerity and foolishness? I guess it depends on the outcome, right?
I suppose it does. But sometimes those acts of temerity are the ones that lead to true innovation and progress.
And finally, we have recant.
Okay.
This is about taking back your words, admitting you were wrong, often in a public way.
Right.
It could be a politician retracting a statement, a scientist revising a theory, or someone simply owning up to a mistake.
It's a powerful act, recanting.
Yeah.
It requires humility, a willingness to acknowledge our fallibility. In a world where people are often afraid to admit they're wrong, recanting can be a sign of true strength and integrity.
It's about putting truth above ego, which can be a tough thing to do.
It can.
All right, ready to move on to our last group of words.
Let's do it.
This one's all about dreamers and realists, and it centers around the word quixotic.
Quixotic. Named after the idealistic knight, Don Quixote.
Right.
He's famous for tilting at windmills, mistaking them for giants. It's a wonderful example of how idealism and imagination can sometimes clash with reality.
Exactly. The word quixotic captures that blend of idealism, romanticism, and perhaps a touch of naivete.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the balance between chasing dreams and being grounded in reality.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? On the one hand, we need idealism to inspire us, to push us beyond the limits of what seems possible. But on the other hand, we need pragmatism to navigate the complexities of the real world and make progress towards those ideals.
So true.
Yeah.
And sometimes those seemingly impossible quixotic goals can lead to unexpected breakthroughs.
Absolutely. It's about finding that sweet spot between dreaming big and taking practical steps to make those dreams a reality. What about you? Do you have any quixotic goals you're pursuing?
That's a great question. I'm going to have to ponder that one for a bit.
Okay, but in the meantime.
So, any thoughts on those quixotic goals? Did any come to mind during that little pause?
I was thinking about how even outlandish goals can spark innovation. Like, if no one had ever had that crazy idea to fly, well, we wouldn't have airplanes, right?
It's true. Sometimes it's not about reaching that exact vision, but what we discover on the way there.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, it strikes me how the words we've been discussing, they're not just isolated units of meaning. They're part of a larger system.
Right.
A network of interconnected ideas.
It's like a constellation.
Oh, I like that.
Each star adds to the overall beauty and significance of the pattern.
It's true. We've been focusing on individual words, but it's the way we use them, the context, the nuances. That's what brings language to life.
Exactly. Take a word like austere, for instance.
Okay.
It can describe a monk's simple life, but also the starkness of a desert landscape. Or even like a government's harsh economic policies. Same word, but vastly different connotations depending on how it's used. It reminds me of how a single musical note can evoke different emotions based on the melody and the surrounding notes.
That's a fantastic analogy. And just like a composer carefully chooses notes to create a specific mood, skilled communicators select words to evoke feelings and convey precise meaning.
This makes me think about the importance of expanding our vocabulary, not just for intellectual reasons, but to become more effective communicators.
Right.
The more words we have at our disposal, the more precisely we can express ourselves.
It's like having a wider range of colors on an artist's palette. A limited palette can still create beautiful art, but imagine the possibilities when you have every shade and hue imaginable.
And not only can a rich vocabulary enhance our own communication, but it also helps us understand the nuances of what others are saying.
Absolutely. Think about how, politicians or advertisers use carefully chosen words to influence our opinions and behaviors.
It's true.
The more we understand the subtle ways language can be used, the better equipped we are to critically evaluate the messages we're bombarded with every day.
It's about becoming more aware of the power of words, both for good and for bad, but also appreciating the beauty and complexity of language,
Right.
how it can be used to inspire, to connect, to create art.
And that brings us back to the word ineffable.
Okay.
It describes those experiences that transcend language.
Right.
Even though some things defy description, that doesn't mean we should stop trying to express them.
I agree.
It's the effort, the reaching for meaning that enriches our understanding.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Even if we can't perfectly capture an experience in words, the act of trying can help us process it, make sense of it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes those struggles to find the right words lead to the most profound insights.
It's like those moments when a poet struggles to find the perfect rhyme or metaphor.
Yeah.
The result is often a line that's even more beautiful and evocative because of the effort that went into it.
Speaking of poetry, I'm curious, do you have a favorite word? One that you find particularly delightful or thought-provoking?
Oh, that's a tough one. There are so many. But one that's been on my mind lately is serendipity. I love the way it captures those unexpected delights that life throws our way.
Right?
Those moments of fortunate coincidence that lead to new discoveries or connections.
Serendipity is a beautiful word. It reminds me of how sometimes the most meaningful experiences happen when we're not actively seeking them out, when we're open to the unexpected twists and turns of life.
Exactly. It encourages us to embrace a sense of curiosity and wonder, to be open to the possibility that something amazing could be just around the corner.
And who knows, maybe our deep dive today will lead to some serendipitous discoveries for our listeners. They might stumble upon a new favorite word or make an unexpected connection between these words and their own lives.
I certainly hope so. After all, language is about so much more than just definitions. It's about expanding our perspectives, connecting with others, and exploring the richness of human experience.
Now, before we get too philosophical, I think it would be helpful to bring some of these words to life with some concrete examples.
Absolutely. It's one thing to understand a word in the abstract, but it's another to see how it's actually used in context.
For instance, we talked about obfuscate earlier.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how might you see that word used in, say, a legal setting?
Oh, that's an interesting one. In law, you might see obfuscate used to describe a defendant's attempts to hide assets or mislead the court. Or it could be used to criticize a lawyer's dense and confusing legal arguments.
So they're intentionally trying to make things difficult to understand.
It seems that way sometimes.
But as we've been saying, the more we understand these words and the ways they can be used, the better equipped we are to see through those attempts at obfuscation.
Exactly. And speaking of context, I think it'd be interesting to explore the etymology of some of these words.
Oh, yeah.
Trace their origins back to ancient languages and historical events.
I love that idea. Etymology can be like a detective story, uncovering hidden layers of meaning and revealing the fascinating journeys these words have taken over time.
For example, did you know that quixotic comes from the Spanish novel Don Quixote? It's amazing to think how a single literary character can inspire a word that becomes part of our everyday language,
That's true.
carrying with it the spirit of idealism and romanticism.
It's like these words become vessels, carrying centuries of history and cultural meaning within them.
And by delving into their etymology, we can unlock those hidden layers of meaning and gain an even deeper appreciation for the words we use.
It's like going on a linguistic treasure hunt. But instead of digging for gold, we're unearthing the stories and cultural influences that have shaped our language.
And those stories can be just as valuable as any treasure. They remind us that language is a living, breathing entity that's constantly evolving, shaped by the people who use it and the world around them.
This conversation has really sparked my curiosity.
Yeah, mine too.
I'm eager to delve even deeper into the world of language and explore more of its hidden treasures.
Me too. And I have a feeling our listeners are ready to continue this journey with us.
I think so too.
Should we take another short pause and come back for a final round of exploration?
That sounds like a perfect plan. We'll be back soon to wrap up our deep dive into advanced English vocabulary. Welcome back to our deep dive into advanced English vocabulary.
Glad to be back.
It's been such a fascinating journey exploring all these nuances and hidden depths of these words.
Yeah, I agree. It really makes you realize how much richness and complexity there is in language.
Absolutely. And we haven't even touched on, like, idioms and slang,
Oh, that's right.
which adds another layer of color and expressiveness to language.
Imagine trying to explain, like, kick the bucket or spill the beans to someone learning English for the first time.
Oh, that's a good one.
It'd be like trying to teach them a secret code.
Absolutely.
Oh.
And every language has its own unique set of idioms and colloquialisms, right?
Right. It really reflects the history and the culture and even the sense of humor of a language.
Makes you realize how much language is tied to our identity,
Yeah.
both as individuals and as members of a particular community.
And it highlights the importance of, like, cultural exchange and understanding.
Yeah.
The more we learn about other languages and their nuances, the more we expand our own worldview.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on something we haven't really talked about yet, the role of grammar and syntax in effective communication.
Ah, yes, grammar and syntax. While we've been focusing on individual words, it's the way we arrange those words, the structure of our sentences. That's what allows us to convey complex thoughts and ideas.
It's like building a house, right?
Yeah.
You need strong, well-crafted bricks, but you also need a solid framework to hold them together.
Precisely. Grammar and syntax provide that framework. They ensure that our message is clear and coherent and easy to understand.
It's amazing to think about how even a slight change in word order or punctuation can completely alter the meaning of a sentence.
A misplaced comma can lead to all sorts of ambiguity and confusion.
So true. And that brings us to another important point, the importance of being precise and intentional with our language choices.
Especially in written communication where we don't have, like, the tone of voice or body language to help convey our meaning.
Exactly. It makes you realize how much responsibility we have as communicators to use language carefully and thoughtfully.
And it highlights the importance of editing and revising our work to make sure our message is clear, accurate, and free of errors.
Well said. Now, as we come to the end of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways.
Okay.
First and foremost, language is constantly evolving.
It's true. New words are being coined all the time. Old words take on new meanings.
It's like a river,
Yeah.
always flowing and changing shape.
Which means we need to be lifelong learners. Always curious about language and how it's being used in the world around us.
I also want to encourage our listeners to embrace the power of language,
Absolutely.
to see it as a tool for connection, for creativity, for making a difference.
Words have the power to inspire, to inform, to persuade, to heal.
But they can also be used to harm, to deceive, to manipulate. So it's crucial that we use them responsibly and ethically.
Couldn't agree more.
And finally, language is a source of endless fascination and delight. There's always something new to discover, some hidden meaning to uncover, some unexpected connection to make.
That's one of the most beautiful things about it.
So keep exploring, keep learning, keep playing with words, and most importantly, never stop being curious about the incredible power of language.
Well said. Until next time, keep diving deep into the world of words. Okay, have you ever felt like native English speakers are just talking way too fast?
Yeah.
It's like they're speaking some kind of secret code or just mumbling.
Right.
You shared a masterclass with me about speaking and understanding faster English, so we are diving into that today.
Yeah, and I think it'll be great to not just figure out how to understand rapid-fire English, but also how to speak it more naturally and fluently ourselves.
For sure, for sure. I saw in the source material, they talk about this shadowing technique. I'm really curious to learn more about that. But first, like, why does English sound so fast to non-native speakers in the first place?
I think it's a few different things all coming together at once. One big thing is connected speech,
Okay.
which is basically how words kind of blend together. Like,
Yeah.
instead of what do you want? It sounds more like wadaya wanna.
Yeah. So it's not that the words themselves are faster. It's just they all kind of,
They mush together.
yeah, they get mashed together, yeah. And then there's all those contractions too, right?
Absolutely. Contractions and reductions are everywhere in natural English. And I think they definitely add to the speed. Things like, going to do, becoming gonna, or want to, shrinking to wanna.
Yeah.
It's like we like to be lazy with our words, but it makes it hard for people to understand.
Yeah. No, what is this schwa thing I keep hearing about?
Yeah, so the schwa,
What is that?
the schwa is a tricky one. It's like this chameleon vowel that changes based on the sounds that are around it.
Oh, okay.
It's this really unstressed, kind of like mumbly sound you hear in words like, the classic example is banana. It's not banana, it's more like bunana.
Yeah.
It just becomes this like lazy sound.
So like the schwa, it can pop up in any word then.
Yeah.
Not just, banana is the one everyone uses.
It can even happen a bunch of times in the same word. Like think of the word photography.
Yeah.
It's not photography, it's more like photography.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
The schwa can really change how a word sounds.
It really is like a secret code. I think an audio example would be really good here.
Yeah.
The masterclass actually gives an example of, I should have told you earlier, both at kind of a slower speed and a native speed.
Okay.
So let's listen to that.
Sounds good.
Audio plays, I should have told you earlier, followed by, I should have told you earlier. Yeah. It's crazy.
It does.
It's almost like two different languages. I can totally see why this is a challenge.
Yeah. But what's cool is that you don't necessarily need to hear every single sound to get what's being said. Our brains are actually really good at filling in the missing information.
That's good to know because, yes, some of that is, like, impossible to understand. Okay, so how do we train our ears to be better at, like, decoders of all this?
Well, one really good way is to practice something called chunking.
Okay.
And basically, instead of getting stuck on each individual word, you try to hear phrases as like units.
Oh.
It's kind of like how we read, right? We're not focusing on each letter. We group the letters into words.
Yeah.
And then phrases.
Can you give me, like, an example?
Yeah, sure. Imagine someone's like, do you want to grab some lunch later?
Yeah.
If you try to pick out every single sound,
Yeah.
it's just a jumble, right?
Yeah.
But if you kind of chunk it together in your mind, do you want to grab some lunch later?
Right.
It becomes way more clear.
Oh, yeah.
So you kind of get the big idea.
Yeah, you're listening for the key idea and not every little word.
Exactly.
Cool. That kind of leads into the next thing, right? About listening in layers.
It does, yeah.
This sounds very Zen-like.
It is. It's like, think about listening to a song for the first time. You're not going to catch all the words, all the lyrics, all the nuances right away, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with English.
So we're listening to the same thing multiple times.
Yeah.
Okay, and what are the layers?
Well, so on the first pass, you're just listening for the gist. Who's talking? What are they talking about?
Right.
And then on the second listen, you try to pick out keywords that'll give you more context.
Okay.
And then on the third listen, that's when you can really zero in on like the tricky bits, like the connected speech, maybe those contractions you couldn't quite pick out the first time.
Okay, it's kind of like peeling back an onion, right?
Exactly.
You get a little more information every time.
You got it.
Cool. We actually have a dialogue example in the masterclass that we can use to try this.
Perfect.
Audio plays. Hey, do you want to grab some coffee? Yeah, but let me finish this first. Cool, I'll meet you in 10.
Okay.
So how would we use this layered listening for this little coffee shop conversation?
Okay, so on that first listen, you're getting, two people are going to get coffee.
Yeah.
Easy. Then on that second layer, you might pick out keywords like coffee, maybe finish this, and then like 10 minutes.
Okay.
So now you're getting a better picture of what's going on.
Right.
And then finally, on the third listen, you can really zoom in. Like, okay, do you want it?
Yeah.
How are they using those contractions and reductions?
Okay, yeah, that makes it much less intimidating.
Yeah.
Breaking it down like that. Now, what about speaking faster? How do we do that without sounding like, some kind of robot?
Like a robot reading a dictionary.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Well, this masterclass talks a lot about sounding natural and fluent, not just talking faster.
Right.
Like you said, we don't want to sacrifice clarity just to sound fast.
Yeah, so are there specific techniques for this?
Well, remember all those contractions and reductions we talked about?
Yeah.
Those are really important for speaking fluently, too.
So instead of saying, like, I'm going to the store, I should say, I'm going to go to the store.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Oh.
And it might feel a little weird at first.
It does.
But I promise it just makes your English sound smoother and more effortless.
Okay. But how do we actually get used to doing that?
Right. Well, that's where that shadowing technique comes in.
Okay.
So you are going to be like a vocal chameleon. You listen to a native speaker.
Yeah. Say a phrase or a sentence. You pause it, and then you try to repeat exactly what they said.
Okay.
Matching their pronunciation, intonation, and speed.
So, like, what are you doing? I should say more like, what are you doing?
Perfect, yeah.
Okay.
And you can start slow, and then as you get more comfortable, you can speed it up.
That's cool. Are there any other techniques we can use?
Yeah, another one is linking. So like native speakers, we just do it naturally. But it's something that you might have to practice consciously if you're learning.
Okay.
So like, for instance, not at all often becomes not at all.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So the tan sound from not blends with that vowel sound of at.
Oh, that's so subtle. Wow.
It is.
I want to try a little fast reading challenge, can I?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the source material has the sentence, would you like to go to the movies later?
Yeah.
How would a native speaker actually say that?
Probably something like, would ya? Like, go to the movies later.
Wow, that's a mouthful. Okay, so I'm noticing would you becomes would ya, to is like ta, and the like disappears before movies.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all about those smooth transitions.
Yeah. Okay. I can already tell I need to practice that one. We've been practicing here in this nice, perfect little world, right?
Right.
How do we take this into the real world where there's all kinds of accents and people talking at all different speeds?
That is the real challenge, right? Because the real world is full of all these variations, different accents, slang, speaking styles.
Yeah.
It's really like taking what you learned in the classroom and then...
throwing yourself into the deep end.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that feeling.
Yeah.
It was, like, scary. So what advice does the masterclass have for us for bridging that gap?
Well, I mean, really, it's about exposure and practice.
Okay.
The more you immerse yourself in the language, the more prepared you'll be to handle those real-world variations.
What are some good ways to get that real-world practice?
Well, they talk about watching TV shows and movies. You can start with the subtitles on to get the gist, and then challenge yourself.
Right.
Turn the subtitles off. See how much you could understand.
Yeah, I find even watching with English subtitles, like, helps me pick up stuff I might not have noticed otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's podcasts.
Okay.
Which are great because you can adjust the speed.
Right.
You can start slow, work your way up.
What about actually talking with native speakers?
Well, that's the best practice you can get, right?
Right.
Find language exchange partners, maybe join some groups online, or even, if you're brave enough, strike up conversations with people you meet.
I remember I was so scared to talk to native speakers when I was learning English.
Yeah.
But I realized, like, pretty quickly, most people are really patient and they appreciate the effort you're making.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it really is about just building that confidence and not being afraid to, like, mess up.
For sure. Don't be afraid to ask people to slow down or repeat themselves.
Yeah.
People are happy to help.
Yeah. So we really need to embrace that messiness, right? It's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect.
Absolutely.
Now, the masterclass has one final challenge for us before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive.
Okay.
They want us to imagine we're hanging out with friends, and they ask, hey, deal up for a movie tonight.
Fun.
Okay, I'm ready for this challenge. Let's hear it.
Okay.
Audio plays. Hey, you're up for a movie tonight. Dunno. What's playing? That new sci-fi one looks cool. All right, let me check the show times.
Oh, casual, fast English.
So what techniques are we hearing in this?
Okay, well, right away we hear that contraction, ya,
right,
instead of you, and then what's playing. It combines like what is and playing into one little chunk.
I noticed they're saying do know instead of don't know, and then let me instead of let me.
It's amazing how those little things make such a big difference.
Yeah, it's like a little puzzle.
It is.
All these pieces, you can even hear that linking, like looks cool becomes looks cool. That's so cool. Okay, so now the challenge is to imagine how we would respond.
Yes.
Using everything we've talked about.
Exactly, and there's no one right answer.
Right.
It's about using what you've learned and seeing how you can apply it to this conversation.
So we're leaving you with that challenge for now, dear listener. How would you respond to this invitation to go to the movies? We'll explore this more in the next part of our deep dive.
You know, it's crazy to think about how all these like tiny little things, the contractions, the schwa sound linking, it all adds up to make English sound so fast.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, it's not really about speed, is it?
No, not really. It's more about understanding each other.
Right, being able to communicate.
Exactly.
I think that's easy to forget when you get so caught up in like the rules and the technical stuff.
It's easy to get bogged down in that.
Yeah.
And forget why we're even learning the language.
Totally. I like that this masterclass really focuses on that, like the human element of language. Yeah. It does. It gives some good advice about how to turn all this stuff we're talking about into like real fluency.
That's what I'm curious about, because I feel like I've hit walls so many times where I'm just like, I'm not getting any better. Like, what's the secret to getting over those plateaus?
Well, It's not really a secret. I think a lot of people they don't do it.
Yeah.
But it's practice.
Yeah.
It's consistent practice.
Okay, so not just like cramming.
Right, not just cramming a bunch of words and grammar rules.
Right, yeah.
But really making it a habit.
Okay, yeah. So what would a good practice routine look like? Say I'm like just starting out.
Well, I mean, even if you could just do like 15, 20 minutes a day of focused listening.
Okay.
That's huge. It could be podcasts, TV shows, whatever you enjoy.
Right.
You could even just listen to conversations happening around you.
Right. That's such a good, like, easy tip, you know?
It is. It is.
You don't need anything special for that.
Just like go to a coffee shop, listen to people talking.
Yeah. Exactly. What about for speaking practice?
Speaking practice is a little tougher.
Yeah.
Because you have to actually,
find someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Right?
But there's a lot of groups online.
Uh-huh.
Language exchange apps and things like that.
Yeah.
You could even record yourself speaking and then listen back.
I used to do that.
Yeah.
It's so helpful.
Right. You catch all these little mistakes.
It is a little cringy, though.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But it's like having your own little language coach.
It is. And you said it earlier, too. It's okay to make mistakes.
Absolutely. That's how we learn.
That's how we learn,
Yeah. Now let's talk about the shadowing technique. We kind of touched on it earlier. Can you explain a little bit more about how that works and why it's so good?
It's basically karaoke for language learning.
Okay.
You listen to a native speaker.
Yeah.
Try to repeat exactly what they're saying.
Okay.
Matching their rhythm, intonation, everything.
So it's like a workout for your mouth?
It is. It is. Getting it to do all those weird sounds.
Exactly. And you could do it with anything.
Oh, okay.
Like a podcast, a song,
Oh, cool.
a scene from a movie.
That sounds fun. What are some tips for making practice in general more interesting?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people think of it as a chore, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's important to find stuff that you're actually interested in.
Right.
Like if you love to cook, watch cooking shows in English. If you're a sports fan, listen to sports commentary.
It's so true. Like when it's something I like, it feels like I'm like not even trying.
Right, because you're actually paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just find ways to connect your interests with language learning.
Right. It shouldn't be boring.
No, it should be fun.
Yeah. Even when we are enjoying it, I feel like we all hit those like plateaus.
Yeah.
How do we deal with that?
Well, I think it's important to remember that progress isn't always like a straight line, You're going to have times when you feel like you're rocketing forward and times where you feel like you're just stuck.
Yeah, like going backwards almost.
Right. And that's totally normal.
Yeah.
But you can't give up.
Right.
Just keep practicing and trust the process.
It's like when you're working out, right?
It is. It is.
You hit those plateaus. It's like, I'm doing all this and nothing's happening.
Right. But just like with fitness, consistency is key.
Okay.
Just keep at it.
And celebrate those like little wins. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get focused on this big like end goal.
Yeah.
And forget how far you've come.
Right. It's like looking at old pictures of yourself like, oh my God.
Exactly. You make so much progress.
Yeah. And that actually brings us to like confidence. Right.
It does.
Because when you can understand and be understood, you feel more confident. You feel more like able to.
You're not just a passive observer. You're an active participant.
Yeah. A whole new world opens up, basically.
It does. It does.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of technical stuff.
We have.
And resources and even like the emotional and social benefits of being fluent. I know this masterclass has one last challenge for us before we wrap up this section of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, remember that movie night situation we talked about?
Yeah.
Our friends invited us to go to a movie.
Yeah, they asked you up for a movie tonight.
And we heard all the back and forth about, what's playing and everything.
What time? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now the challenge is, what would you say? There's no script this time.
No, I like it.
Just like, what would you say?
It's like they're saying, okay, here are all the tools. Now you go.
Exactly, yeah.
Make something beautiful.
Yeah.
It's your turn.
Yeah. And I think that's what this whole deep dive is about, right?
It is, yeah.
It's not about memorizing.
Yeah.
It's about being able to actually use the language.
It's about empowering you to use the language.
Yeah, yeah. So, dear listener, that's the challenge for you. Put yourself back in that situation.
Yep.
What would you say? How would you use these techniques we've talked about?
Yeah, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Just like, what's your gut reaction?
Yeah.
Have fun with it.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to try.
Okay.
So if my friends asked if I was up for a movie, I might say, yeah, totally. What are we thinking of watching?
Perfect.
I'm using a contraction.
You are.
I'm keeping it casual.
You are.
And I'm expressing enthusiasm.
Yes, you are.
I love it. And I'm already feeling more confident just thinking about,
I love that.
using all this stuff.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, right, is finding your own voice.
Yeah.
And just being comfortable.
Awesome. So, dear listener, we want you to find your voice.
Yes.
Experiment, try new things, push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit.
And remember, fluency is not like an end point.
Right.
It's an ongoing journey.
It is, yeah.
Full of ups and downs, and it's all about connection,
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Connecting with other people.
Okay, I think this is a good place to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and wrap up our deep dive into speaking and understanding fast English. I'm still thinking about that movie night challenge.
Yeah.
I like how it makes us actually, use what we learned.
It is. It's a good way to, bridge the gap between the ideas and actually putting it into practice.
Totally. It reminds us this isn't just about, memorizing rules. It's about, using language to actually talk with people.
Right. Language is about connection.
Yeah. This deep dive has been awesome.
Yeah.
Can we do a quick recap of what we talked about?
Yeah, for sure.
Just to make sure I've got all the key takeaways.
Okay, well, I think the first thing to remember is that speed is just one part of being fluent.
Okay.
You don't want to just talk fast.
Yeah.
You got to be clear.
Yeah.
And you got to sound natural.
Right. So it's a balance.
Exactly.
Okay. And one way to do that is using all those contractions and reductions.
Yeah, definitely. Those are super important.
Yeah.
They really make your English flow.
Now, what about chunking?
Oh, yeah, chunking's huge.
Yeah.
Training yourself to hear those chunks of words instead of every single word.
It's like we're upgrading our brains.
It is. It's like a software update.
Yeah.
For your ears.
That's a good way to put it. And then we have that layered listening approach. First the gist, then the keywords, then all that subtle details.
Right, like connected speech and all that.
Okay, and then for speaking, we've got that shadowing technique.
Ah, yes, shadowing.
That was really cool. Having a pronunciation coach in your ear.
Exactly. And you can do it with anything.
Right. Any material that interests you.
Yeah.
So we've got all the tools. Now what's the secret to putting this all together? What's the magic formula?
Well, again, it's not really a secret. It's consistent practice.
Oh.
Finding things that you enjoy.
Right. It should be fun.
It should be fun, yeah. It shouldn't feel like a chore.
Totally. Because when it's fun, you actually want to do it.
Exactly. And you'll learn faster that way, too.
Yeah. So, find things that you're into, movies, podcasts.
Yeah. Or connect with other people who are learning.
Yeah.
You can all practice together.
Now we all know fluency isn't you don't just arrive there one day.
No, it's a journey.
Yeah.
With lots of twists and turns.
Yeah. And we're going to mess up along the way.
Oh, for sure.
You just got to, keep going.
Absolutely. Celebrate the wins and learn from the mistakes.
I think that's a great way to wrap up our deep dive.
Yeah.
So, dear listener, hopefully this has given you some new ideas for how to take your English to the next level.
Yeah. Keep practicing and keep exploring.
And keep connecting with people.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, language is about connecting.
So true. That's it for our deep dive into speaking and understanding fast English.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.